Kia ora koutou. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Audit and Risk Subcommittee meeting. Today is the 25th of June, 2024. I can't believe that Christmas is 6 months away. Unbelievable. Welcome to the public who may be watching us on Council's Facebook page, and whilst welcoming people, may also take this opportunity to welcome Deputy Mayor Lewis in attending in Mayor Barry's absence, and also to Councillor Edwards, who is now a member of the subcommittee, having replaced Councillor Barrett. So welcome to you both. Councillor Briggs, may I pass over to you, please, to take us through the opening karakia?
Certainly. Everyone on the karakia is on the screen. Please feel free to join in. Mi noi tātou. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga. Kia mā kina kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai. E hiaki ana te atakura, he tio, he hoka, he hauhu, tihei, mauri ora.
Thank you, Councillor Briggs. And we do have an apology from Mayor Barry today. I'll move that the apology from Mayor Barry be accepted and leave of absence be granted. May I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Briggs. So I have a mover and a seconder. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye, against say no. Thank you. I declare the motion carried. There is no public comment for this meeting today, so that takes us to the conflict of interest declaration. May I just ask if any member has a conflict they need to update the committee, or any conflict relating to today's papers, please? No, thank you. That then moves us to item 5 on page 8 of the agenda. That is the Three Waters matters, and I'd like to ask Bruce Hodgkins to come forward and speak to his report. Kia ora, Bruce.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kia ora tātou. I've just got a couple of items I want to update you on today. The first one is the State Highway 2 pipe, and just wanted to make it clear from discussions I've had in the last few days that the physical works will take some time to put in place, so probably won't be occurring this calendar year. It's likely to be early next year, so all the investigation work that is happening will take some time, and it may well require overseas advice and expertise and materials that will be part of the solution. So don't expect it this year. The second thing was just in regards to the water leaks, paragraph 22. We've moved from a weekly reporting now to fortnightly after the first 6 weeks or so. So we'll be getting a report fortnightly, which we'll pass on to you. And the latest numbers, they're under the 400 mark, so we're down to 391, I think it is, and that was just over a week ago. So that's all I need to add at this stage.
Thank you, Bruce. I ask if there are any questions from any committee members, please. No? Is there any additional comment that you would like to make, Madam Chief Executive?
No, we, as I indicated to members in my update last week, I gave evidence to the Select Committee yesterday on Taituara's behalf, at the same time as Water New Zealand and LGNZ, just for members of this committee, the risks that people were interested in with the legislation, whilst recognising the need to make sure that local water is done well, is the timescale for in which a water services plan should be submitted. If you're going to stay the same, it's a relatively simple issue, but if people are setting up new water services, CCOs, then that is going to be an extreme challenge to do that within 12 months. All those present raised that point. Similarly, the lifetime of the plan at 10 years is pretty much universally thought to be too short, given, for example, and you can see that in our own papers, that some risks do not occur up in that timescale. Some consenting issues may not occur in that timescale, and all of that is relevant to financial sustainability. So those were the key points that many of us made, and I'll be supporting Dame Carrie Prendergast on behalf of the wider Wellington Collective, give evidence to that Select Committee tomorrow. Of course, the other challenge, Madam Chair and members, you all know this, is we are proceeding with these plans, proceeding at pace. However, until the next lot of legislation is published, until much later in the year towards Christmas, we're kind of guessing as to what's going to be in that as we are formulating these plans. So that's just a bit of a challenge, but a challenge that all of local government is in. So I'll just leave it at that, Madam Chair. Happy to take questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions relating to the additional commentary the Chief Executive has just provided? No, thank you. I'll just add, it is already disclosed and a matter on record, as I'm the Deputy Chair of the Infrastructure Commission. We too have been providing advice and input to select committees, DIA and others. All of that advice is publicly available on the Commission's website and obviously on select committee records as well. It does not differ from anything that is already in the public domain or has been highlighted in other ways. So that said, I will now move on to the recommendations, and they are that the Subcommittee 1 notes the active risk register for Three Waters attached as Appendix 1, which was considered by Council in its long-term plan deliberations. 2, notes the report and findings of the Wellington Water Limited independent review of its systems and processes following the omission of corporate overheads, and its advice on the draft long-term plan capital works program will be reported to the next meeting of this subcommittee for consideration. 3, notes that work on the high-level conceptual design for a preferred future regional water delivery model is progressing at pace, and that there is likely to be a budget shortfall to progress this work over the coming financial year. 4, notes work is progressing on the scope and constraints of the urgent project to upgrade a section of the main wastewater pipe under and adjacent to State Highway 2, and that the funding for this work will need to be further considered by Council once costs are known. And lastly, 5, notes that progress on eliminating the backlog of leaks is on track with the plan Wellington Water Limited has put in place. May I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Edwards. Is there any discussion any member of the committee would like to have on this matter? Councillor Stellinger.
Just quickly, Madam Chair, to thank the staff and the team at Wellington Water for the progress on the water leaks. Not only do the figures look good on the paper, but just moving around the city, it's really visible. There's far less leaks around than there used to be, so it's great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stellinger. I'll then, as I have a seconder in Councillor Edwards, I'll now put the motion. All those in favour say aye, against say no. Thank you. We'll record the motion carried, and thank you, Bruce, for your detailed report. That then takes us to we have information item. We are going to have a verbal update from the Chief Financial Officer with respect to the audit opinion for the LTP, but our first information item is on page 21 of the agenda, and that is the regular Whakatupu Nainai update. So I'd like to ask Andrew Quinn to step forward and speak to his memorandum. Well, Andrew is online. What's happened to Andrew? Not here.
Madam Chair, it's most unusual. In Andrew's absence, I'm happy to put forward the report as read and see if there are any questions from members that we can help you with. I think it's exciting. There is everything is on time, doing what it needs to, and it's very exciting that we have the community centre Te Mako opening this weekend. So I'm happy to take any questions from members, but I think hopefully you can all see the risks are suitably covered and managed as we are coming to the end of this exciting project and its new beginning.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And yes, it is unusual that Andrew is not with us. So trust that everything is okay there. But thank you for that. I agree that the report can be taken as read. It is detailed as always, contains quite a lot of information, useful updates. And yes, as you say, Madam Chair, exciting that it is about to open. So with that, I will then ask if there are any questions from any member of the committee, noting obviously that Madam Chief Executive or Chief Financial Officer might be able to assist in the answer. Councillor Stellinger.
Just one, and happy to take an answer subsequent to the meeting if that's better in the circumstances. It's just on page 24 of our agenda papers. There's a table on the quantitative risk assessment. I just wasn't sure what the deduction from the amounts spent on the project headed up OPEX budget transfer was for. So a bit of just a brief explanation of what that incorporated would be helpful to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, so this is from right at the beginning of the project where there was some costs that couldn't be capitalised. So it was to do with demolition works and some of the initial planning works, early design work and so on, and we can't capitalise it in line with our accounting standards, so we had to transfer it to OPEX.
Which is a standard process. Thank you, Jenny, appreciate that. No further questions, members? No, thank you. I'll then move the recommendations, and they are that the subcommittee, 1, receives and notes the information, and 2, notes the following progress that has been made on the Whakatupu Nainai project. A, work on the new Nainai Pool and Fitness Centre is progressing to plan, and confidence remains high that the project can be completed within budget. B, the conversion of the old Nainai Post Office to Community Centre is complete, save for a few finishing items that will be completed before the handover to operator Team Nainai Trust. The centre will open to the public on the 29th of June 2024. C, the concept design of the Walter Middlenhall Park is currently being finalised following feedback from the community. A preliminary version will be presented to the Nainai Community Advisory Group on the 12th of June 2024, so that has obviously occurred, which is when the paper was written. May I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Morgan. I have a move and a seconder. Is there any discussion, members of the committee? No, thank you. I'll then put the motion. All those in favour say aye, against say no. Thank you. I declare the motion carried. That then takes us to the second information item, and that's a verbal update from Chief Financial Officer on the long-term plan. And also believe, Jenny, you're going to cover the audit opinion. So I'd like to welcome John Whittle, who's the appointed auditor from Audit New Zealand. Thank you for joining us this afternoon, John. Jenny, would you like to make some opening comments and then hand over to John? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So good news is we're all on track for Thursday, where we adopt our long-term plan, and also our audit process has been completed. So all our papers have been published, the final long-term plan. I did send out an email yesterday which had the audit opinion and some information related to that, and no doubt I'll hand over to John shortly and you can talk through those. I just wanted to say, in terms of the LTP audit, gosh, it's been a hard slog. It's been a really comprehensive audit process, both through the draft LTP and the consultation document. We had Audit New Zealand going through lots and lots of information, all our underlying information supporting the draft LTP. We had the Office of the Auditor General review things as well. And then the final step in the audit process, since the 4th of June, we've also had Audit New Zealand work through stuff, and then Office of the Auditor General again. So really comprehensive, big piece of work. And I want to thank John and his team. It's been really good to work with them. They've had good processes, good communication, and we worked really well together. And also want to acknowledge our Manager of Financial Strategy and Planning, Deep, who's taken a massive burden and done a great job through that process. Just briefly, in terms of the audit opinion pieces, I'll just talk briefly to it and then hand over to John. There's basically 2 emphasis of matter points around capital durability and the 3 water forecast information. Those are both in our draft LTP audit opinion as well, so they've carried forward with some minor tweaks. There's a new piece around the qualified opinion, and that relates to the 3 water asset valuation process. And just a bit of background on that. From an accounting standard perspective, we've got to make sure that our assets are reflecting fair value, and we've been doing asset revaluations every 2 years. The last one was back in the 21-22 annual report, and off the back of each of our annual reports we get a report from Audit New Zealand where they make some recommendations, and that report is presented to this committee. Now, on the back of the last asset revaluation process, Audit New Zealand did say to us that we needed to, in terms of the asset valuation that took place there were some challenges and there was some improvement work needed, in particular in us comparing the unit rates across the region. So they needed more evidence and more work happening with Wellington Water and ourselves, talking to other councils in region and our unit rates, being able to explain the differences in our unit rates. And so the work that we've done since then is we've basically gone out to market together with Wellington City Council and Upper Hutt, and we've agreed to use the same valuers, and we're really trying to set ourselves up for working well collaboratively, getting a good process in place with Wellington Water, and really sort of upping our game in terms of the asset valuation process for 3 waters. And so we've just very recently, in the midst of this final audit, we then got the draft report from our new valuers. And obviously it's been picked up as part of the audit process, checking and looking at what that draft report says compared to what our assumptions were in the LTP. And that draft valuation report for this year-end annual report is not complete. We're still checking and going through a process to review that and so on. But it does show a big step up in the values compared to what we'd assumed in our LTP. And so the auditors have basically quite rightly said, well, there's a limited scope in terms of the audit process. They can't check that report, that valuation report, because it's not finalised. And hence the qualification on that. So it's a quite unusual, unique situation we're in. But probably my point to hand over to John now. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Chair, and thank you, CFO. I think she captured that quite well. So it's a limitation on the work we're able to do at the moment. We will need to do this work over the coming months as part of our work to report on the statutory accounts. But until that is done, and Council's also had an opportunity to work through this, there remains uncertainty as to whether this uplift is correct or not. So as far as the LTP opinion goes, there's not enough time now to complete that work before we are due to sign.
Thank you, John. Deputy Mayor Lewis.
Thank you. Just in regard to the unit value you were assessing, were we an outlier compared to the other councils? Or did we come up to their standard? Were they all on doing a different rate to us? Was everybody else different?
So you're talking about the annual report 21-22. So back then, our unit rates were lower than what we were seeing in Wellington City Council, and there was some difficulty explaining the difference. And we were using different valuers, so it was difficult to kind of really understand the difference. So hence why we've moved to a new process now where we're all using the same valuers, we're working closer together. Wellington Water's very closely involved in the whole process. And so we want to understand, you know, wherever we land, the valuers land, we want to be able to explain and understand the differences between councils. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Edwards.
Tui was asking as well. So presumably Upper Hutt and Wellington have also been caught out by this higher valuations than anyone was expecting?
No, we got our report. They haven't received their draft reports. Okay, ours, we asked, we're doing it for 31st of May. Sort of trying to get a little bit ahead of the year end, where theirs had been done for 30th of June, so they haven't received their draft reports, so we're the only ones getting this opinion as a result of that.
Thank you, Jenny. Madam Chief Executive, is there anything you'd like to add? Sorry. Oh, sorry. Councillor Stallinger, you first.
Yes, I'm not sure if our Chief Financial Officer will be able to answer this, given it's a draft report, but I just wonder if it's possible to get a rough indication. Are we talking maybe 5 to 10% above LTP figures, or could be substantially higher than that?
Substantially higher than that from the draft report. There's obviously a number of factors in there. It's, you know, there's the unit rate going up, but we've also got new information around, or better information around our asset data as well. We've also got additions, changes to our asset data that have happened since then. So there's a number of factors playing out in that.
Thank you, Councillor Stallinger. Thank you, Jenny. I think it is important work to do, and it's unfortunately feels a little bit like you've got to go backwards to make progress, but I think that is an important thing to actually do, to get that correlation and get that piece for moving ahead, particularly with obviously the other matters that we've just heard about earlier in this meeting today. Thank you, Madam Chief Executive. Is there anything you'd like to add?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think two things. Firstly, in relation to the point that's just been made around assets, we toyed around about that, as you know, Madam Chair. We spoke to you. You know, we'll need to address it thoroughly in next year's annual plan. Is it a matter of note this year, or is it something more than that? We accept what it is. Ultimately, and as you just heard, we've got our report earlier than others, so it means that others will be facing that in the start of their next financial year rather than now. But we have taken the view, as we have in all things, that far better to be transparent and upfront and no secrets and no surprises, which just takes me on to my second point. And without foreshadowing the Thursday's meeting, so I'm not tempting fate, but I do, this is an appropriate forum, and I hope I can do it at the council meeting as well, to acknowledge the spirit in which everybody has worked together to produce this behemoth, and it's felt like a behemoth of an LTP with an extremely challenging set of circumstances that we are not alone in. And that in itself is important. I would always look to say, actually, are we an outlier across New Zealand? But you will have seen from all the information you've been given that we are very much in the pack. So I think that how we have got to here is a tribute to how we have respected each other's very different roles, but worked together in the spirit of transparency and openness. Had some tough conversations at times, but I've always worked to a common end. And so, and Madam Chair, your guidance and challenge, because challenge and support are both important factors in good governance, has really helped us to get to here. So just want to acknowledge everybody's hard work, and thanks to John and the team. It is a matter of good governance to get to here, and you don't have to, you look at places across the country where that good governance isn't there, and you then get various different types of mistrust and advice or all sorts of things. So I'm very grateful for the way everybody, without fail, has worked together positively and constructively to put together what is a very challenging plan, which, subject to Thursday, we need to then get on and deliver. And finally, just to also acknowledge the pragmatism of members, going back to that earlier item on the agenda, where Councillor Stallinger acknowledged, amongst us, the leaks progress. Actually, that money is not in the budget until the 1st of July. But you have enabled us to work proactively with Wellington Water to get upstream of that, to support ultimately for the benefit, as Councillor Stallinger said, and I drive around the city too, you can feel the difference. But without that level of pragmatism from elected members and that flexibility to manage capital programmes over 2-3 year terms, we simply wouldn't be able to make that happen. So just a huge acknowledgement and mihi to everybody for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chief Executive. A long-term plan is always a huge challenge and a huge amount of work, but in the environment that we're all currently in with the number of uncertain issues, it's even more challenging. So I'm sure everybody involved appreciates your acknowledgement, and certainly without foreshadowing the outcome of Thursday's meeting. Hope that all goes well for you as the final stage. Thank you. That then takes us to the third information update, which is the Audit and Risk Subcommittee Forward Work Programme. It's a standing item on the agenda. It's on page 33. This has been quite a short meeting today. I acknowledge that, and thank you all for your attendance. It was my decision ultimately to still hold the meeting even with a light agenda. It is, if I may borrow your phrase, Madam Chief Executive, good at governance, particularly ahead of your meeting on Thursday. Our meeting on the 27th of August, if you look at it will be a full agenda. So I'm sure we'll be doing our duty then too. However, moving along, I will move that the committee receives and notes the forward programme for 2024 as attached as Appendix 1 to the memorandum on page 33. May I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Morgan. Is there any discussion, members? No, thank you. I have a mover and a seconder, so I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye, against say no. Thank you. I declare the motion carried. I've not received any questions for this meeting, so Councillor Briggs, may I ask you to take us through the closing karakia, of which is on the screen. Thank you.
Certainly, Chair. Please join in. Me noi tātou. Unuhia, unuhia. Unuhia e te uru tapu nui, kia wātea, kia mama, te nākau, te tinana, te wairoa i te arataka tū. Ko ia rā e rongo, whakahiria ake ki runga, kia wātea, ai rā, ko wātea, hau, pai marere.
Thank you, Councillor Briggs. I declare the meeting closed.